You ready? Okay. Good morning, colleagues, and thank you for your patience, as usual. As you can see, our first speaker is Honorable Emma Hippolyte, Minister for Commerce, Manufacturing, Business Development, Cooperatives, and Consumer Affairs. Honorable, it's your time.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Have you fully recovered from an epic jazz session? Yeah. You all have recovered. Okay. So I hope you all are all energized. The entire nation is energized and now ready to produce. Yeah? Good. So I'm here today to speak. The first item I'll speak about is a meeting tomorrow, God willing, between the Cabinet of Ministers, the Honorable Prime Minister and the Cabinet of Ministers, meeting with the private sector. And what has caused this meeting? Within the Ministry of Commerce, every quarter we have an arrangement where we meet with the private sector organizations, the Chamber of Commerce, the St. Lucia Manufacturers Association, the Bakers Association, Fashion Council, SLISBA, Small Business, and the various private sector organizations to try to understand what are the issues that is affecting them and how we can work together to energize the business community. And in one of our meetings in January, they raised quite a few issues that some of the issues they raised, we could address it at the Ministry of Commerce, but others, we felt it was necessary for them to meet with the cabinet, the ministers with direct responsibility, for example, of minister responsible for tourism, minister responsible for energy, minister responsible for finance and the policies impacting VAT and the Small Business Association. So that meeting is taking place tomorrow. 10 o'clock at the Finance Center. And I know you, members of the press, are also, I believe, invited to that meeting. And it's just making a reality of a commitment we made as a government. And that is, in addition to putting our people first, to maintain open communication. We've spoken about collaboration within government, but for our country to move forward, we need collaboration between private sector and public sector within the government. And as a Minister for Commerce who represents the business community, we are ensuring that this is taking place. That will take place tomorrow, God willing, at the Finance Center. I also want to, again, from my ministry, I want to remind persons that we have extended the deadline for the micro, small, medium enterprise loan grant facility, and persons must continue to remain focused on presenting their applications. What I do not want to happen is what happened in the first call-in, where on the last day we received almost 70% of the applications. That is going to cause delays. So we are really hoping, I want to encourage John Public to bring in the applications gradually.
Okay, concerning that, is there a specific department that they have to call? Because I've been made aware that sometimes people call the ministry, they ask certain questions, and people in the ministry themselves don't know where to direct them, or they say they don't have any information.
You do not know where to direct them at the Ministry of Commerce?
So, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Because I know from our receptionists at the front to the driver and everybody else, we have brought them in as a team to cause them to know what is happening under the MSME loan program. In fact, our secretaries, we've put it as a team to the extent that our secretaries are assisting in calling persons and things like that. So I'm sorry to hear that. But I want to encourage John Public that they could walk into the Ministry of Commerce in addition to calling. We also, in preparation for the second call-in, we had about 4 online sessions where over 200 persons participated. And we are asking those persons now to conclude the application. It's one thing to participate, but you have to prepare an application, and that application must be accompanied by specific documentation. I know other persons are having challenges in terms of company registration. Persons, for example, may be registered with one name, and now they want to bring an additional person to put onto that company. And I know some persons up to last week were having some challenges, and our officers had to be working with officers at the registrar of companies to try to facilitate that. But definitely it is on. This year as well, we are this second calling, we are trying to target specific groups as well. We are targeting the differently able. We are targeting members of cooperatives. We are, for example, members of the Fashion Council, persons who are seamstresses and fashion designers. We are saying, please come on, we are going to give you special attention, identify persons to work with you. The cooperative sector, both farming and fishing. So we are targeting specific groups to ensure that the applications are completed
So,
on
Minister, I
time.
wanted to go back to what you spoke about the issues the private sector members would have raised at the previous meeting you had. You said that's why they're having the meeting tomorrow. What are some of these issues they may have raised? And also, what are those that you could have resolved?
No, the issues that they raise that we are going to discuss it tomorrow. They raise the issue of crime, they raise the issue of energy, they raise the issue of tourism and their participation in the tourism sector. These are some of the issues that were raised, and that is why it's important that the respective ministers are present so we could discuss them.
Okay, you also spoke of some issues they did raise, but your ministry is able to take care of that.
For example, there are certain issues they've raised. For example, the bakers would raise certain issues. We deal with that because we are responsible for the purchasing of rice, flour, sugar. For example, you would get some bakers that felt, for example, if there's no sugar or there's a shortage of sugar, the baking sector should receive priority. So without sitting at the table, maybe that would not be uppermost in our minds. We'd focus, when we think of bakers, we think of only flour. But we don't think of bakers needing sugar. So I'm saying it is when we sit at these discussions that these issues come up, and we immediately take the internal policy decisions which impacts them.
Speaking of sugar, are we, I think, stabilized with that product coming into the island?
Well, it's not a matter of whether it is stabilized. When you look at the whole issue of supply chain issues, they're not stable. If you look at the news, the war continues. If you look at the news, there's still shipping issues. I can say that there's an improvement. We've had significant conversation up to the level of the Prime Minister here and the President of Guyana, for example, to try to deal with the issues impacting the supply of sugar from Guyana. So we've put some mechanisms in place. What I can say is we have since looked at, we brought it into CARICOM, we have looked at additional suppliers. We have sat as well internally to look at the internal mechanism within the Ministry of Commerce, the Ministry of Finance as it relates to the procurement arrangements, and to see how we can fast track that. And in some cases you can do some direct purchases when the need arises, but I always want to remind the public when we go into direct purchasing at short notice, then the price immediately escalates, and it hurts the government because the government continues to cushion and subsidize the price to the general public. But I know, for example, an issue that impacted us in terms of the distribution of sugar is that even when it was available in the warehouse, if you go to the supermarket, they were still rationing. And it was an issue where we had to sit down and see what is happening, what is causing that. And I went to a few places. I was at the counter and they were rationing the sugar, and I had to say, there's no reason to ration. We have sugar.
So in recent times, as you said, if you have to make a direct purchase, have you had to do that in recent times? Right?
Yes, we've had to. The only reason you don't know is because we didn't increase the price on you. Yeah? But yes, we've had to.
But where else are we getting sugar? I know we were getting some from Belize, am I wrong?
We had to get from, we got sugar from our main supplier, which is at the lowest cost because of the volume, was Guyana. We had to we purchased a bit from Jamaica, we have purchased from Barbados, we have purchased from Belize, but all the serious suppliers, the prices are much higher.
So
that is why we are trying to negotiate and stabilizing a source where we do not have to go at extreme cost to get sugar onto the shelves.
But what's the issue with Guyana? Why can't we?
Well, they've said it before. I mean, Guyana has its own challenges, so I don't want to go into all the details, but they are a large supplier for the region, but they too had to put things in place in terms of the structure of the organization. We've seen some changes there, but
one of the changes I think they mentioned in December last year, they spoke about no longer selling sugar on credit, that it had to be, as a direct purchase, you had to pay cash, I guess, up front for your purchases. Is that one of the issues affecting us?
No, that's not the arrangement we've had with them. And if they say so, then we deal with it. But that's not the arrangement. Don't forget, the process is you go through a tendering process. When we need sugar, we put the quantities and the specifications of the sugar that we need out there, and persons tender. For example, sometimes we get white sugar way up from UK. So, it's a tendering process. But again, we must meet specific standards for the sugar.
Madam Minister, if we recall at the last business expo, I think it was in the Boulevard, the emphasis was put on energy efficiency. Now you're going to have this meeting with the private sector. Have there been any developments in that area? Is it something that we're pushing forward to, especially with digital and technology? Is energy efficiency one of the components for business growth and development?
Don't forget, yes, energy efficiency is high, both energy efficiency and as well as digitization. Because you may recall just last week we had an event at Bay Gardens. No, just Bay Gardens, just last week, where we had the closing ceremony for a coding competition that was organized by my ministry, the Consumer Affairs Department of the Ministry of Commerce, and the Ministry of Education. Again, looking at innovation, digitization, but the coding was using AI, using coding to address climate change. And you had, I think, 9 schools got honorary mention. You had the St. Mary's College receiving the first and second prize, and the Suffolk Comprehensive Secondary School receiving the third prize. So we continue to work in these areas. And what you saw again at that event was a collaboration between the Ministry of Commerce and the Ministry of Education with support from the Taiwanese mission.
And in terms of the cost factor, there's a lot of prospects for cutting down costs. There's
very significant prospects for efficiency and less cost when we turn into alternative sources of energy. And that is why the business community wants to engage the minister with that responsibility to know where things are, because there is a draft act that has been circulated. If they have any concerns on that, how it's going to impact them, especially our manufacturers. We have some large manufacturers that are really waiting to invest in that area. So the meeting tomorrow, God willing, is extremely important for them.
Okay. Recently on Facebook, somebody would have made a post in terms of a price discrepancy. They would call
Over?
it price discrepancy, but it really wasn't a discrepancy. It was that Massey stores in particular had a discounted price, which was the same price as the original. So persons were complaining that this is something that typically happens where you see a discounted price, but in actuality it's the same price of the item before. So there's really no discount. So consumers are of course concerned that this has been going on. Is there any investigations into stuff happening like this, or persons making complaints of such happening? And if there is, how does the ministry tackle such situations to ensure that consumers are protected?
Okay. We have within the ministry a department called Consumer Affairs Department, and we have officers that actually has the responsibility, officers with the responsibility to walk the aisle and make this comparison. But we also, in addition to that, so persons can actually lodge a complaint to the ministry. We also have, and we are working closely with the National Consumers Association. And the National Consumers Association is sort of private, not sort of, it's a private sector NGO organization. Groupings of anybody can join. I think there's a membership fee, and you become a member of the National Consumers Association. They too have a mechanism to monitor what is happening on the ground. They too, for example, just last week, what day it was? Last week, within my ministry, we met with the representative of the finance community, the banks, and the NCA were present. The members were present. And at that discussion, we were discussing customer service, why the banks still have a long line, and making it not too comfortable sometimes for customers, and the fee structure of the banks. And the NCA were present. Again, at our ministry, that's the process. So if you see an issue as a consumer, you could come through the Ministry of Commerce, through the Consumer Affairs Department, as well as you have this private sector body that you can present to. We have a mechanism where the first thing we do, we attempt to bring the consumer, the person with the complaint, with the business party, which is the offender, in. Most times it is resolved before it goes any further. If not, there is also a structure within facilitated by our department, where there's a unit that can adjudicate on things like that. So the consumer must know that they have rights and responsibilities through the Ministry of Commerce or through the NCA.
What's the penalties, though, if it's found to be something like what you mentioned is
I don't think we've ever reached the stage where there are penalties. There is, as I said, there is a body that is set up which has authority under the law, but we've never reached a stage where it is presented to them. Most times the matter is dealt with by both parties sitting at the table. Yeah, but as a consumer, the issue that you raised, there's something I remember in commerce, when you taught commerce, where they tell you to let the buyer beware. So when we are shopping, most times, I know even myself, we are quick to shop, we just pick up things, we don't look at the expiry date. As shoppers, I think we need to look a little more, look at the content of the products that we purchase, do a little bit more investigation, sometimes do a little bit more price comparison where we can, so that we understand what we have in our hands. You have the power, you have the dollars. As long as you are the one paying, consumers have the power. But just be careful how we do it. Yeah? Okay. Have a blessed day.
Thank you very much. I think, let you ask questions.
yes.
Please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I know we just concluded the jazz, 2 weeks, is it, of jazz? But my question, though, is just to remind the public. I mean, this has been hailed as one of the, I guess, most successful showing for this event. Again, remind us, why is it that investments are being made into this festival? Because people, I think some do have an issue as to why the government is putting money towards it. What are the benefits? What are we getting out of this? Why do we have a jazz festival?
Well, I think that question will never go away. Just like questions as to why you spend money on sports will never go away. I mean, there'll always be somebody who is not supportive of some aspects of government expenditure. But there's so many reasons why you should support the St. Lucia Jazz and Arts Festival. You start off with a very clear understanding of the value of the festival for the promotion and marketing of St. Lucia. In fact, all social media, all over, is all about St. Lucia and the Jazz Festival and the success that it was. Even more so this year, we have so many of the artists using their own platforms. I mean, if you just look at the interview with Marshall, for example, you look at Davido's, you look at Chloe Bailey's, and you look at all of them, the reach and the extent to which St. Lucia is being marketed and promoted by those artists is phenomenal. But what is different is not just that they went to St. Lucia to perform, but the experience that they had. So, for example, Marshall is still in St. Lucia. He's spending extra time here. He'll be writing over the next few days in St. Lucia for next year. A couple of other artists, of course, there's only so much we can say about because of their own privacy, whatnot. Totally in love with St. Lucia and the experience they had, how they were treated, and the St. Lucian experience. I mean, if you just look at Davido's postings, for example, and that is immeasurable, significant coverage that St. Lucia gets in terms of marketing and promotion. And then you add to it the visitors who do come to St. Lucia. When we sell tickets and we check online, almost 50 nationalities, 50 countries, persons bought tickets from coming to St. Lucia. So it's a significant benefit in that regard. We've not seen the final figures as yet, but surely it brings tremendous economic benefits directly in persons coming into the country. Then you add to it the economic impact, how it filters throughout the economy, various sectors. So you have visitors coming in, spending money, renting vehicles, going to restaurants, going to different events and spending. And that itself is a no-brainer. You cannot argue with that. I mean, if you invest 8 million, whatever, in a festival, and the spend by visitors alone is close to 20 million, it's a no-brainer. But then even more than that, when you add in the community festivals, that benefit is not just a cash-rich grocery benefit, but it filters down to the communities as well. When you have 5,500 people in Soufrière, for the Soufrière Jazz, it filters throughout the local economy in Soufrière. When you have it in Deriso, even in Bexau, which is a new event, you can actually feel the spread and the filtering down of the benefits, the spend. I tell individuals sometimes, and when you reflect on it, and it was probably best shown, say, in the UK after COVID, when all the pubs closed down, the shock it gave to the economy, and then a lot of people realize, and when you shared an article with them, how widespread, from the caterers, the vendors, the hairstylists, the persons, the designers, the seamstresses, the nail therapists, so many different aspects. The suppliers who provide tents and provide stage and music, and the bus drivers. There's so much that goes into that associated economic activity that brings tremendous benefits to the country, tremendous benefits. And then you take it further. Creative industry, the development of our creatives in the country. Look at the number of young artists in St. Lucia that got an opportunity to perform, earn some money, their own professional development, and throughout the island, throughout. You would have seen, I was really impressed, for example, Kingdom Night, the first act we had, the St. Lucian, group, the Rosalie Babono joint group, who performed on a big stage for the first time, and they were excellent. It now opens the door for them to develop as a gospel group. And you never know where next they can go, because their performance is seen globally now. And the quality of singers we had in that group, they now exposed globally. You look at even someone like an Ezra, who's a seasoned performer, but his performance at main stage showed that he's at that level where, you never know where's the next step for him. So I think in terms of the creative development, it's phenomenal what's happening. The exhibition by Xavier at Orange Grove, those of you who have not been there, to go and see it. This is St. Lucian. This is something we are hosted. I shared some of the photos of the exhibition, and I have friends overseas who asked me, where is this exhibition? I said, it's St. Lucian. They asked me, St. Lucian? They couldn't believe that what was presented, which is at world class, that we were doing it in St. Lucia, and that there's somebody in St. Lucia with so much art that can be put on display. The spoken word under the arts component of the festival is growing. We have so many performers from outside, and it will continue to grow, and next year it will be even bigger. The Big Drum Project, which for me is a very special initiative to revive drumming in St. Lucia, and it builds on what we did during Creole Heritage Month in Belleville, the drumming festival. So you can imagine for October this year, you have drumming groups from all over Africa, the French and Chile, saying they want to come to St. Lucia because there's a vibe, there's something happening in St. Lucia. So Jazz on the Square, it came back, and I think it will continue to grow. So there's so much. You just watched yesterday, 12-year-old, Herbie Alton on stage with Jab Du Plessis, 12 years from Soufre, blowing that saxophone. You could not ever get goosebumps. That 12-year-old primary school student from Soufre can be on main stage. Soufre secondary, and play like he did. It just tells you about the talent we have in St. Lucia, and this is an opportunity to allow for the talent to develop and to give them that confidence and to let them realize that they can be world-class too. The sky is the limit for him. So, this is a festival that is owned by St. Lucians, and you see it for the community festivals. The community takes a pride in organizing their community festival and welcoming people to their community. The way they so welcome individuals. Bexon, again, you felt the community pride that they were hosting an event and welcoming people to their community. And the community festival will increase next year because Babono did not come off this year. Oh, and Fodor came back. Let me tell you, Fodor blew me away. I hadn't been to Fodor for a very long time. And just to see Fodor and to enjoy the ambience and the setting was fantastic. This is going to grow even more next year, I can assure you. There'll be a lot more community festivals next year. Again, putting forward local talent. Almost everyone who performed on stage at Deriso before WCK and Burning Flames was from the local community. And that will continue to grow. So I'm really satisfied that the Jazz Festival plays a very critical role, both in terms of our economic development, but also in terms of our creative arts development. And, it's a no-brainer. Anybody who thinks they can do it with the Jazz Festival will always pay the price for doing so.
How much did the government invest this year in the festival?
Well, I haven't seen the final figures, as you can imagine. Today, everybody's just trying to pull the ends together. So I can't give you, a definitive figure. And of course, we have the arts component and we have the music component. We still have some challenges, major challenges. As it gets bigger, traffic management is going to be an issue. And transportation, event transportation is going to become an issue. In most venues you go to, whether it's stadia or entertainment centers, you have multiple points of access. Pigeon Point has one road. Of course, we have the sea, which we're trying to develop as an option, but you have one main road to get to the venue. So moving 10,000 people, to an event, and St. Lucians have an impatience, when it comes to those events. As soon as they get out of this venue, they want to jump on a bus and take it straight back to their homes, or go into their car and drive straight to their home. It doesn't work that way. So it poses a lot of challenges for us on Friday. And of course, you had Grizzly Friday night. So that itself poses challenges. But I think by the Saturday and the Sunday, we got the traffic management right. The park and sale, we still have a lot of work to do on it. Somebody was complaining to me about, when they got off the park, they went on the jetty, there were no boats for them. And I had to say to them, you have to wait, because the first wave went and the boat has to take them to the marina and then come back for you. You can't, as soon as you walk onto the jetty, to just expect a boat waiting for you. It doesn't work, so you have to wait. And if it takes 25 minutes to the marina and 25 minutes back, it means 50 minutes you have to wait. But you have to get that into people's minds. But it also means we now have to put additional entertainment. It's something which we did in Cricket World Cup 2007, why we built the promenade. So as you were leaving the cricket game, we don't want everybody rushing the buses. You have entertainment along the route that will occupy you and kind of delay departures. We might have to invest some more in that, especially after the concert has ended, to entertain people so it delays their departure. But of course, the crew has to clean up. You have to get ready for song check in the wee hours of the morning. So, we will have to think it through. But as the festival gets bigger, we have to make sure the experience people get is a fantastic experience. And the different components of it that we have to continue to work on. But I really need to thank everyone, the support services, the police, the fire service, the nurses, the doctors, events company crew, SLTA, staffing, everyone who worked so hard to make the weekend a success. There was not one major incident that we can report on, not one. It was well managed. Everyone worked so hard to make sure it's a success. And I really have to thank everybody, all the solutions. And even those who were critical, continue to share your observations and your suggestions, because it's the only way we will really get it right. That even in the criticism, there are sometimes very good suggestions as to what we can do better. So I don't have a problem with some of the criticism. Let it come, and we will continue to work on it and tweak it until we make it right. We already start planning for next year. I can tell you we have some exciting, components for next year to make sure we continue to grow and the festival continues to be one of the best festivals. Another interesting and welcoming feature this year was we started seeing the regional component coming back in, because post-COVID, and for the years we did not have the festival, the regional participation was not really there last year. And we noticed this year a lot of French and Trinidadians, Barbadians coming over. And I think it will grow even more next year as regional connectivity improves slowly. And I'm really excited about it, because St. Lucia Jazz Festival had that reputation, not just internationally, but also regionally. And we're already getting calls, during the festival from other countries, other persons from around the region that want to come and perform, at St. Lucia Jazz and Arts. So we have to tell some of them, no, you'll have to go to a community festival, because there's only so many acts you can have. But we'll continue to work on it, and we start getting ready for Carnival. The first Calypso tent is this weekend. So it's going to be another exciting 2 months as we build up towards Carnival. But the Jazz Festival, I think from all accounts, was a tremendous success. The traffic, like I said, was a major headache on Friday night, but we worked hard Saturday morning to get it adjusted and corrected in time for Saturday afternoon, and I think it worked.
Yes, sir. In terms of the production aspect, we saw a lot of developments. Even the ambience at the park was different.
Yeah.
Now and then you have even the outside parking. So
Yeah.
there was a lot of developments that. But in terms of the cost factor, how do you factor this in? Are there private contractors? Are they semi-contractors? And who supervise? I know Event St. Lucia is involved, but in terms of the financing and the cost and the management, who does the tourism ministry? Who really supervises this whole setup? Because I know it's a lot of people
Yeah.
involved in this.
Well, I mean, the Central Tourism Authority, they're the executive producer. So essentially, they conceptualize the festival from the music side in terms of how they want it, brought forth to the patrons. The executing agency is Events Company of St. Lucia. So they are the ones who make sure the setup is there and all the arrangements are in place from an event management perspective. But from a conceptualization perspective, the Tourism Authority does it. So they drive the financing of everything. Government gives an allocation of $8 million for festivals, not just the jazz and arts, but to support the other festivals as well. So they have the resources to do so. And events carry the event management costs. And the arts component is the Cultural Development Foundation. So they will put on the arts festival in entirety. What happened? Arts in the City, the exhibition, the spoken word, the Cultural Development Foundation are the executive producers for that component of it. So you have three major entities working there. Central Tourism Authority for the music side. You have the CDF for the arts side, and events company that does all the event management. I didn't even speak about the pure jazz. This year we added another day for pure jazz. Last year we had one. This year we had two. And the pure jazz was simply pure. I mean, Samara Joy and the first day night was really good. Alison Markey on the first night really showed his class as a maestro. And the pure jazz really added that finesse to the festival. Yeah, so that's how it is done.
And since you mentioned you spoke a lot of the development of the local artists, coming on stage. I mean, these are like a curveball. We've spoken about it before, but in terms of the Lucian talent now having a stage to showcase, because I mean we have jazz once a year, carnival, but would there be like any occasion where you have a Lucian talents on this national day or someday?
We have it throughout the year. Yeah. For Emancipation, you see Lucian talent. For Carnival, you see Lucian talent. For Jazz, you see Lucian talent. For Creole Heritage Month, you see Lucian talent. Let me tell you, I don't think the creatives have ever had it so good. I mean, in terms of continuous opportunities. But I mean, everybody wants more. I mean, let's not run away from that. And especially when it becomes a livelihood, you want it sustained. So, yeah, there are a lot of opportunities now, and we'll continue to create more opportunities. For the next 2 months, until July 15th, there'll be a lot happening in terms of panorama, junior panorama, junior calypso. 2 weeks ago, we chose the finalists for the junior secondary school and primary school calypso competition. There's a lot that's going to happen for the creatives and for St. Lucian musicians. I mean, some of the guys are already producing the music and releasing it for the season. And as soon as Carnival finishes, we go straight into Creole Heritage Month and everything else. So, yeah, there are a lot of opportunities being created. And government is showing the lead, but, other entities and other interests can come to the fore as well. It cannot only be government. And if government does not organize something, there's nothing happening.
And we talk about the National Museum or this National Auditorium. Is this something in the working?
Well, it is. I mean, we still have as a priority the establishment of national performance space. And although what we will be doing during this year is to start building some community spaces. So we'll be putting an amphitheater in Serenity Park. We'll be building one in Bellevue. The Fisherman's Village in Banan will have a performance space. So there'll be a number of performance spaces created throughout the country to give our creatives, the infrastructure for at least for them to practice and to develop their craft. So yes, that will happen.
What are your thoughts about I think there's a complaint that the Pigeon Island landmark, well, the National Trust wasn't getting top dollar they were not being paid top dollar for hosting the event there.
I'll be making a statement in Parliament on the National Trust and the future management of the Pigeon Point from a tourism and event perspective, because I believe we need to take a very, a very frank look at how it is managed and what's happening, because there's a lot being said. There's a lot we went through in the last few weeks to get this festival off the ground, and today's not a day for it. But I can tell you, there will be a very serious look at how we move forward, because the Pigeon Point also serves as the premier site for weddings in St. Lucia, and there are a lot of complaints and negativity about what's happening there now and the support that's given. The event promoters don't even want to go to Pigeon Point anymore. The tour operators don't want to go anymore because they have so many complaints. So we need to take a look. But I think it should be a public discussion as to how we move forward with Pigeon Point, because it is a historical site which has to be preserved, but it's also a national park which must be accessible to St. Lucians to use it in a responsible way. I don't think we should be pushing out, St. Lucians from the park and pushing out certain activities from there. We have to find a way to manage it properly. And, that has to be a very open discussion, and let all ideas contend. My approach is to say to everybody, put your ideas on the table, and collectively let's bring all the ideas together and decide the best way forward. We cannot have a small clique, deciding that they alone have the right to say what happens and what doesn't happen. But that discussion will start very soon on how we manage Pigeon Point moving forward. I cannot support that we should no longer have jazz at Pigeon Point.
I have a question. So we would have seen a post made to social media. Again, it's coming from the Church of God, Seventh-day Adventist Church. Kingdom Night was largely celebrated for what it represented, including religion, into the Jazz and Arts Festival. However, the church did make a decision to put some of its members on probation. They did state that they will be making a public statement in regards to that situation. However, it's kind of like the government made the effort to include it into the program, and now you have persons being almost victimized in a way for attending the show. Just as a person, how do you feel about that happening?
I'm glad you said as a person. I don't know which church put it out, to be honest with you. I read it, and I'm not even sure. I heard that, but I don't know for a fact. And I've learned to leave things of that nature for those better suited to comment on it, and that's for the spiritual leaders to comment on what should or should not be. But I think, as a person, as you asked, it's fantastic that we have Kingdom Night for Christians to come and celebrate their faith through song and music. If there are churches that believe you should not celebrate faith and spirituality through song and music, that's their teachings. I respect it. I wouldn't be going to that church, but it's their faith, it's their preachings. And if the church says you should not go, then I guess you either choose the church or whatever. For me, I don't know. That's for the church to decide and to guide its followers accordingly. I thought the night was fantastic. I enjoyed it. And we're looking forward next year to have an even more exciting lineup for Kingdom Night. I don't know, it's reached a point that most Christians in St. Lucia do not support Kingdom Night. I don't think that's the situation. In fact, by the turnout and the way persons enjoy themselves, I believe there's a strong support for Kingdom Night. And for sure, it's going to stay on the agenda for now. And if any church wants to discipline their members for participating, that's their own choice. I won't even get involved in that. Yeah.
Recently we
Yes,
saw.
you want it?
On that note, you mentioned that you're planning for next year. As a Christian myself, what's the lineup like?
For next year. But who would you like to see? Who would you?
I would love to see Ada and Mercy Chinwo.
Yeah, Ada for sure. I love. Yeah, yeah. I'm not so familiar with the second name, but Ada for sure. Yeah.
Jesus, you love me too
Yes. You're right. Yeah. But I mean, feel free to share your ideas, because next year the team is already working on options, and you know who to come.
For sure, I will be the first one. I won't be working that night. For sure, I will.
You'll be there. All right. Yeah.
You have an agent already?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we saw a show, a Burna Boy show, and he used some expletives. I remember last year there was some controversy with expletives. Do you think from a tourism standpoint we need to review the laws pertaining to that, or if anything create a certain policy or legislation for performing arts, so not just for musicians but let's say for spoken word artists, you know, if there is so to guide their conduct, what they say, how they act, and that sort of thing?
Well, I think it's against the law to use obscenities in public. That's already the law. So I mean, whether it's on a stage or even by the roadside, you know, it's already illegal, and that's just the point. However, sometimes you know you have certain licenses you give to performers, you know, when they perform. It's a different thing to somebody deliberately using obscenity to insult, you know, their audience, whatnot. I mean, the police can intervene and charge you. Some songs do include obscenities in their lyrics, and of course, you know, if you're having public broadcasts, you need to remove, and there are established ways in which such is done. We will never encourage any artists coming on stage and abusing the audience, or surely using obscenities. And if it is something which is sustained, the police should get involved. And that's how I feel about it. Of course, there are artists who have songs that do have, and increasingly so these days, we know we take a very firm stance when it comes to violence and lyrics that promote violence and the use of guns or whatnot. We don't want them performing in St. Lucia, period. I mean, we are aware of the influence that it can have on the audience, but we would never support it or allow it to happen.
In St. Kitts just recently, I think they put up 50 cents.
Yeah.
Taken from the shoe straight to the police station. They were making something hilarious about it. It has to do with the colonial mentality. But then he realized, you know, he had to give it. That's the regulation of the country.
Exactly. I mean, some countries, they have no issue with it. I mean, guys go on stage and they say the worst and most vile things. And it's allowed because that's the culture of the place. That's not our culture. You don't go on a stage and use obscenities and insulting language. You just don't do it. We don't allow that in our country, and we should not allow it. So it will be stopped.
Again, recently we heard about some threats from North Pakistan to Cricket West Indies, threats of violence and so on. What measures have the government put in place? I know you guys passed recently the World Cup legislation, but what measures are being put in place to ensure maximum safety for this year's World Cup?
Well, I mean, there's a lot that is in place and has been put in place. Obviously, I cannot give you a detailed account of the security measures and the intelligence measures that are in place, but the point is, you know, there's quite a lot that is being done. And we've been through that before. We did Cricket World Cup in 2007. We did a World T20 in 2010. And I was involved in both of those previous tournaments. And similarly for this tournament, there will be the infrastructure put in place both locally, regionally, and internationally to ensure the safety of the games. And I have no doubt in my mind that everything will be done to make sure that, you know, patrons who do come in will be safe and secure. But a lot will be put into place.
Lastly for me, in terms of the logistics of the event itself, because every year you would find that the structure is different, because last year you would have food and drinks to the back. This year it was more to the corners. And to me, it did pose kind of an issue because if you'd walk down the hill, you'd realize it was quite empty. If you'd walk to the side, quite empty as well. So it's almost like the persons who did invest, because they would have had to pay for their spots, didn't get maximum returns because persons didn't want to leave their spot in the crowd or cross the crowd to go to the too far ends of the park to get foods and drinks. So generally, how is this considered, and is there any opportunity for them to pitch on how they think the structure should look?
Well, what was done this year in terms of the concession areas was what was traditionally done many years ago in the early stages of the festival. You actually had a concessionaire village where people go and get their food, their drink, and usually you go for your food and your drink in between acts. In changeover, everybody goes to get something to drink and eat and come back. Last year we kind of changed it a bit, but there were too many complaints about it, and also too for some little safety reasons. You don't want to mix food and drink service with the crowd, especially when you have a packed crowd. So there are some issues with that, and again we will look at it and to see how we can massage it and make it really work. What we can do, and in fact some of the vendors who were speaking to me last night, is to probably have screens in the concessionaire village to really establish it as a proper village with seating. Really, but again, you have to work with the National Trust to get that done, and that's where some of the challenges start coming in. You can actually create a concessionaire village with screens. So while you're taking a little break, you want to eat something quickly, drink something, you can sit there and watch the show still going on, and then go back to your place, rather than wait for an act to finish for you to go and get something to eat and drink. So the use of more screens, although we increased the number of screens this year, so the concessionaires to the top, at the far end, we had a screen for those at the top. But those at the bottom, we didn't have a screen there for them. And it's something we can look at and to improve it next year. So constantly we have to tweak it and see how we can get the right setting as the festival grows to ensure people have an enhanced experience. Because you're right, some people want to still, while they're waiting for their drink, they want to be watching what's going on. But we'll have to work on it. I mean, those of you who go to cricket, I don't know how many of you have been to cricket at Darren Sami in the early days. Half of the crowd is under the stands, having country and western dance, playing dominoes, while the game is going on. Because for us too, it's also a limer. It's a big lime. You go and hang out with your friends, you lime, you drink, you eat. Okay, I want to have babyface, then I go in the crowd. But those are the acts, I stay by the bar. Different people have different habits when they go to those events.
I guess I want to update on two matters within the tourism sector, and also, first off, you're supposed to be meeting with members of the private sector tomorrow, the whole cabinet, I think they said meeting tomorrow, to address issues that the private sector would have raised at a meeting in January with cabinet ministers. I think you don't know anything about that?
Well, I missed last cabinet meeting. It was jazz, but I haven't been told that, so.
Oh, okay. Well, you and your whole team is supposed to be meeting with
the private sector tomorrow?
Yeah, at Finance Center. Maybe you will find out.
I'll find out, yeah. When the announcements are made, I'll find out.
Okay, well.
But tomorrow I have two exciting tourism. We're launching our storytelling. We're training persons on how to tell the stories of the communities as part of making sure we have, more local, authentic experiences. So, training storytellers to be able to build a narrative of the communities so I think we have that tomorrow morning. I know the big event for this week is sod turning for the new hotel at Mount Pima on Thursday. I'm sure you would have been invited. Yeah, the media is invited. So
we get our.
I'll double check, but you should have gotten your invitations right now.
So 10 a.m.
Yes, 10 a.m. Thursday at Caribbean Jewels.
Caribbean.
Yeah, that's the
at
start.
The actual place, the site.
At the site, yeah.
Okay. An update the La Party negotiations. What happened? What's happening?
Well, I mean, we have done as much as we can on our part. The investor, having gotten the support of government, is finalizing the financing of the project, and we're just waiting for them to come back and say, well, look, we're going to start X date or whatnot, because there's a process, huh? So they came before their plans, their concepts, submitted it to us, we reviewed it, we said, yeah, we like it, whatnot. They said, what can government give us to make it real? We need to finalize our financing. We said, look, government can offer you A, B, C, D, and they're now finalizing the financing. It will be a huge investment, so it will take a while to finalize the investment. But we hope it comes through, and that something can happen there very quickly.
What about the negotiations with DSH on that?
Well, that one is a little more complicated. DSH, as announced by the leader of the opposition, has indicated that they wish to take the government to arbitration. And we've said to them, well, okay, if you want to. Basically, we met with them to try to resolve it. It was a discussion which, I mean, obviously I cannot release publicly, but we're waiting on them to do what they believe they need to do. And we will defend the best interests of St. Lucia, whatever they do. But sooner or later it will come to a head.
Are they suing us or we just arbitration? What is it? What's the right legal term here?
Well, I mean, the contract provides for when there are differences to go to arbitration. So they've indicated an intention to go to arbitration. They believe St. Lucia has not delivered to them. Don't ask me what that's supposed to mean.
All right.
What are they seeking from St. Lucia?
To pay them.
To pay them what for what? What for what?
What did they lose?
Well, we'll see. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.